Packed summer. Gabe Neitzel, excited to be joined by the Olympian, the gold medal winner, Matt Hamilton, who took this assignment very serious. And I am thrilled to talk to you about the 2013 season finale for the Green Bay Packers today, Matt.
Yeah, it was a blast. I texted my buddy and was like, dude, I'm making wings. We're cooking out. We're having food. 5:15 kickoff. Packers are playing week 17 versus the Bears. And he's a little confused, but once I told him I was cooking, he's like, honestly, don't even care. Explain it to me when I get there. I'm in. So, some good food was all it took to allure some buddies in there. And then we got that like Packers game day vibe going.
Which is great when you can get that in the middle of August. So I guess what we got to ask before we start diving into 2013 and try to remember all the things leading into this game. Like, if your buddy's saying yes to your cooking, Matt, like I got to know, like what's going in the wing sauce? Like how are we preparing these wings? Or is it like a Matt Hamilton secret that you don't want too much to get out there?
No, it was a little bit of an experiment this time. Like my normal go-to is I'll smoke wings, which I did. And then I throw them in the fryer to like get them crispy.
Yeah.
Didn't want to start the fryer back up. So I basically cranked up the old pellet grill and tried to like grill them off.
Okay.
Not as crispy as a fryer. So I don't think they were like my best execution of wings, but I made a buffalo sauce. I'm a big cooking fan. So I actually fermented and made my own hot sauce with the peppers from our garden last year. Yeah, we had grown jalapenos, lemon drop peppers, and habaneros. So I took those, fermented them for about a week and a half, and then like made my own true like Frank's Red Hot. So I did that, roasted off some garlic and butter, and used an emulsion blender to get everything like it was like bright orange. It looked almost like neon orange.
Oh,
it looked wild, but I tell you what, we tossed the wings, and they were like fantastic.
I'll tell you what, when me, Ashton, and Mark Shimura get our food podcast going here on ESPN Wisconsin, like you're invited. Like the four of us will have a food podcast. We'll kick back and just, talk about all that, especially once football season starts. I'm sure you've got plenty of football food ideas.
Oh my gosh. I want a Ashton hot dog in the least sexual way possible, but it sounds amazing. Oh, they sound incredible. I can't help it.
All right. No, hey, well, no, I mean, trust me, I'm not going to edit that audio and use it out of context ever. Like that's not going to happen on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy. That's never going to happen. We would never do that. Nothing like that would ever happen. So let's dive into this 2013 game. So for those who may not remember, 2013 was obviously a decade ago at this point. But when the Packers and Bears played each other on November 4th, Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone. Yeah. Seneca Wallace would finish the game. Not great for the Packers. They would lose that game. Seneca Wallace would start the next week. He would suffer an injury. Scott Toolzien would take over. Things didn't go all great for old Scotty T. And I still can't quite recall the circumstances of Matt Flynn becoming available and the Packers just being able to pick him up, because Matt Flynn forced a tie against the Vikings when he would come in and replace Scott Toolzien. He would get a big win against the Falcons, huge come from behind win against the Dallas Cowboys to kind of set the stage for this last game of the year. Aaron Rodgers is coming off of injured reserve, off the broken collarbone, and the Packers and Bears, the winner of this game, wins the North, goes to the postseason. North was not very good that year. Only the division winner was making the playoffs. So that kind of sets the stage for the angst and anxiety heading into this game of Aaron Rodgers not playing since early November, and now here we are. The best thing that you could have hoped for is happening, right? Aaron Rodgers is out for half of a season, yet the last game of the year still means win and you're in against your hated rival, the Chicago Bears.
Right. And actually, one of the interesting comments that I heard on the broadcast before the game is they had interviewed Aaron during practice, and he said, they asked how his arm was feeling. He said it felt too strong. Like he's never had that much strength in his arm that late in the season. He said he was actually throwing a couple Hail Marys in practice from like the 50. And he said he put him about 5 yards past the end zone and said he was actually feeling too good. So going into that game, again, trying to put my head in this, like, this is a new game. I don't know the ending. I'm like super encouraged by hearing that. I'm like, okay, Aaron Rodgers is feeling himself right now. Let's go. Too strong. I love it.
One of my favorite things about doing this exercise with all these repackable games that we've done here on ESPN Wisconsin is you remember certain parts of the game. Like Kyle Wallace and I did, speaking of Hail Marys, last week we talked about the Hail Mary that Rodgers threw against, the Lions. And there's just so many details that you kind of forget that get you to that point. Like I completely forgot about some of the details in this game. Like how wild this first half was. Like it was an insane first half that I can't. And you said you kind of rewatched this as if it was almost a new game. I can see the stress, of this game. And I try to remember where like my mind was watching this game 10 years ago, because there's one of two things you could have come away. Either the Packers moved the ball and you got nothing to worry about in the first half, or the Packers moved the ball, yet the only touchdown they scored was on a sack fumble that everybody stopped running except for Jarrett Boykin, who picked up the ball and ran it into the end zone.
My note for that was actually forward fumble TD by Jarrett Boykin, LOL, da Bears. Just like how more fitting for the Bears to give up a touchdown after literally being stout. I think there was an interception in the end zone from Aaron Rodgers. They get down inside the 30 again and lose the ball. Like, brutal start. Like, Packers very well could have been up by 14 or down by 14. And to get that touchdown and to have a lead at that point, crazy. Didn't even make sense. Like, how that game was, like, falling. I actually was, like, kind of cooking. When I saw that first interception in the end zone, again, my headspace, I was back watching a game. I had to, like, turn away. I was like, nope. I need to take a break. I can't watch this for a little bit.
Well, it was the Packers' first possession, and they're moving the ball. And I forget another one of those things you forget, because I think it's easy with Eddie Lacy and the way things ended for him in his career, where Mike McCarthy's calling him out for his weight.
15 yards. It's amazing too. And I actually forgot we had James Starks back there as well. So I was like, man, what a 1-2 punch.
Well, and Eddie Lacy was Offensive Rookie of the Year this year. Like he was so good that first year in Green Bay. Again, it's easy to remember the China food tweet and Mike McCarthy saying, yeah, he can't be that heavy, and how things ended for him. Right. But man, was he good that first year. Just the explosiveness he had, despite having a bum ankle. He's like exploding for big runs, dragging people with him. Like Eddie Lacy for that 1 year was a really fun running back.
Yeah. He was one of the, even into his second year, like he was still good. He had that weird, like first contact spin move where when someone would hit him, he would like take his shoulder into it. And I remember seeing like more Packers doing it. It was just like a move that I saw Eddie Lacy do in his rookie year. And then all of a sudden, like Jordy would get hit, but he'd turn into the hit and be able to like stay on his feet, or Randall Cobb or something. So I feel like it was actually something that Eddie influenced the rest of his team on how to run, because the guy was such a bruiser, but like that kind of move it just showed that he was smart too. He was able to deflect a little bit of that punishment that the defender was bringing in on him, and he was able to stay on his feet. Fun runner.
Yeah.
Runner.
Between him and James Starks, and they flashed the stat early in that first drive because the Packers were successful running the football and they weren't asking Aaron Rodgers to do too much, kind of, just little passes here and there. But the Packers' yards per game in 2013 was the most in a decade for them. You had to go back to 2003 when Amon Green was still on the team. Tausch was still playing on the team when the Packers averaged that kind of rush yards per game. So with Aaron Rodgers out, it was one of those things where they had to rely on the running game more, and you had Eddie Lacy, you had James Starks, and they had the ground game that they could do it. But then, of course, the first drive ends in that interception, and you're thinking, okay, you know what, first game back, it's going to be fine. They moved the ball. But then when Aaron Rodgers threw a second interception in that first half, you're going, oh boy, what is how? I mean, 2 interceptions in a game for Aaron Rodgers at that point in his career.
For not playing?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It was definitely nerve-wracking. Another thing I did also want to notice so the first play of the game that the Packers had the ball, Eddie Lacy busts one for like 15 yards. I also noticed a long-haired, maybe rookie or second year David Bakhtiari absolutely pancake somebody on that initial run. And I was like, oh my gosh, D-Bach with hair past his nameplate. Like, I don't remember that D-Bach for a minute since, probably his wedding now.
Right? Yeah. I mean,
So
and that's
it's pretty awesome seeing like a young David Bakhtiari and all these like players again. Like Andrew Corliss was out there.
Oh yeah, he had some big plays. Late in the game, the guy who was making some big plays, Andrew Corliss, Jarrett Boykin. Like I remember for this part, and then early in 2014, the Packers were so high on Jarrett Boykin, and he had like one of the best Twitter handles of all time because I still remember it. It was Boykin he catch.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
with his last name.
It was a great name, and it just. The core, like the players he was learning from, also blows me away because there was Jordy, Randall Cobb was there. I saw James Jones. I believe Jennings might have still been there at the time. I can't remember if I saw Jennings' name or if it was just Jones.
Yeah, it was just Jones.
Way, I mean, between Cobb, Jordy, and Jones, those are three guys that are going to definitely show you the ropes at wide receiver.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mike McCarthy sacrificed Boykin and his career when they played Seattle in the opening game the next year because Seattle played that cover 3 and famously like wouldn't move Richard Sherman. So they just put Boykin on Richard Sherman's side and just like he eliminated that side of the field. And I don't know if we ever heard from Jarrett Boykin after that 2014 season opener. But as we mentioned, he had the big and lone touchdown for the Packers in this first half. Again, so many weird things. So you had the 2 interceptions that Aaron Rodgers throws. We ran over the Boykin, touchdown, their Packers lone touchdown that first half. And then late in the first half, it's not a Jay Cutler interception. The Packers force a fumble, but then Morgan Burnett just decides to lateral. There's nothing that makes me more nervous watching football games, Matt, than when defensive players decide to lateral the football for no reason. And he just pitches it to Sam Shields, and Shields ends up getting some more yards out of it. But it was just, how many more wild things can happen in this first half?
Right. It's like everything that has or could go wrong has been going wrong. And now you're just throwing like the opportunity for more chaos to happen like into the world. It made no sense to me. It was so frustrating. It was nice to finally get a little bit of like a change of momentum there though, because Matt Forte, you could tell like he was starting to break this offensive or defensive line down. Like we contained him okay in the first half, but man, was there like flashes. And I was definitely at one of those moments. I'm like, man, I hope at halftime we figure something out for the run game because it ain't it right now.
Well, and then unfortunately, they did not figure out something for the run game. So the Packers get the field goal at the end of the first half. They head into the locker room. They've got a 13-7 lead. And again, like we said, there's one of 2 ways you can look at it. If you were the pessimistic Packer fan, you were like, man, they should be up by 1,000. They're lucky to be up. But if you're optimistic, you're thinking, okay, Rodgers has shaken off the rust. They're moving the football. They held the Bears to 7 points, which that was another thing that was flashed up. It was like one of the highest scoring Bears offenses of all time. They had almost averaged 30 points per game. So you had to feel pretty good, I think, going into that half. But then when the Packers, they kind of stall on the opening drive of the second half, they get one first down, have to punt it away. And all you get is Matt Forte after a big Devin Hester punt return to set him up at the 30-yard line. 5 Matt Forte runs later, they're in the end zone and the Packers are trailing.
Yeah. So like I said, I was going through and I was making notes of things that like stood out or started to grind my gears. That first drive where the Packers have the ball back, it's 3rd and 1. And I just write Joe Buck, and I quote, not running the ball on 3rd and 1 against the worst run D in the league. This is the Packers. And then it went incomplete and they punted that ball away. And then Devin Hester proceeds to return it to the 30-yard line. Next play, Matt Forte for 15. And then my comment was, Matt Forte, TD, dumb, run, oh my God, duh. like, of course they were running. How did you not know they were running? Why did you put all 11 in the box? They were not throwing that ball in any world. And it was just like a reminder. It was like, gosh, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, those guys bother me so much. They did in 2013. They still do. But he's not wrong. That's probably why I just like him. It's like, I hate that you're spitting facts at me, Joe Buck. I'm watching the same game you are. You don't need to say it. But it's brutal. And then, yeah, the point where it's like Matt Forte for 15 yards to start their drive, punch in the mouth, Matt Forte, TD, another run, dumb, oh my God, run. Like, first of all, that is a frustrated Matt Hamilton. That was, I don't care that I knew the ending of that game. I was upset. I was visibly upset.
Just watching a game that's almost 10 years old, still very upset that these things were going. But then, I mean, you mentioned Buck. Like, Buck had mentioned right away, like, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers just came out running here. And that's exactly what they did. You want to talk about another? Eddie Lacy, 17 yards. Starks, 4. Starks, 5. Starks, 41. Starks,
41
1.
on that cutback. That's right.
So so the Packers come out. Yeah, 5 straight runs. Yeah, found a little, just a little sliver, and it just explodes through. Yeah. And you could just see the way that James Starks and Eddie Lacy really complemented each other in the 2013 season, I think, in that one drive.
Like, to a point where, like, they had Lacy out there. He chunked him twice, and you could see that defense was, like, heavy breathing. All of a sudden, you put James Starks in there, and they're not catching James Starks when they had to just deal with trying to bring Lacy down. I don't, especially the way everything ended, I don't give Mike McCarthy as much credit as I probably should. That was kind of I would say a bit of a stroke of offensive genius, or maybe it's just one of those things you should do if you know you have it. Well, he executed it perfectly because that team looked like they had no answer for those two in the run game for a moment. And then I love that we brought up that play. I go, Rodgers does Rodgers stuff, dancing in the pocket, finds Cobb in the end zone. Take that, Bears fans.
Like, I don't, so he kind of rolls. It's one of those where he just, at the last second, able to, like, get his shoulder in the right spot, but it's still kind of an awkward angle where he fires a dart to Randall Cobb. That was spectacular.
Yeah, Rodgers does Rodgers stuff.
Yes.
Like, there's no better way to explain it. Like, every Packer fan knows exactly what I'm talking about. If I'm like, Rodgers just did what he does in the pocket, and that's keep his head downfield somehow, but just know that guys are whizzing by him and he's got to step up and go right or left. And yeah, that was just another example of Rodgers being able to, like, create time out of zero space.
And that's what I'm going to miss the most. And I understand, a lot of people were done with him. We've moved on. We've already had Jordan Love's first preseason game at this point, Matt. But, like, those are the little things that Rodgers can do that are certainly going to be missed. Maybe Jordan Love comes up with Jordan Love stuff, but like Brett Favre had Brett Favre stuff. Aaron Rodgers had Aaron Rodgers stuff. And it's those little things, I think, that you miss initially as you have this uncertainty in your stomach about, okay, what's the next Packers quarterback going to be like?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a terrifying situation to be in, considering being only 34 years old. The first 4 years of my life don't count because I don't remember anything. All I remember as far as Packers football is concerned is Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. And I've watched every other fan base go through quarterback purgatory at some point. And I've just been here chuckling away, just like finding the golden ticket's easy. Just do it 2 times in a row, and you got 30 years of MVP caliber quarterbacking. It's a great time. You should try it.
So the Packers, after that touchdown pass that you mentioned, they're back on top, reclaim the lead, sitting there at 20-14.
Yeah,
and the Bears go run right away. Packers are ready for it. And then Jay Cutler, this might be the best throw I can think of when it comes to Jay Cutler. The one he ends up completing to Alshon Jeffrey up the left, like Sam Shields, he's covered it well. I don't even know if he mistimed his jump. He just can't get his hand there, ends up to Jeffrey. They get it down to the 1-yard line after, again, one of the best passes, I think. And again, it's probably a short list, but one of the best passes I've ever seen Jay Cutler have.
It looked to me like Shields bit on maybe a move early because he didn't even have any idea the ball was coming other than the fact that Alshon Jeffrey was open with his hand up, because I remember my note on it is my note was Alshon Jeffrey burns Shields to get to the goal line, super close, timeout, maybe it's going to be reviewed. And why would you review it the way Matt Forte has been running it? You got to get 6 inches. Like, it was close. I do think really he was close. Down, but
yeah. So they end up not reviewing it. They just wasted a timeout for some reason. Instead of actually challenging it, they punch it into the end zone. Bears back on top to take the lead. And you're thinking, okay, here we go. Back and forth game. Packers offense ends up stalling out after they decide to challenge a very close Andrew Corliss catch that he felt bounced off his arms, officially ruled the bounce off the ground. So they had to punt it back to Chicago.
Yeah.
And
I wrote terrible call. Shut up, Troy Aikman, because you were saying it was a dump. There's no definitive proof that the point didn't touch. Shut up, Troy. What do you know? You've got the same angle everyone else does. That's definitive proof to me. Corliss caught that ball.
I think he caught it. I think Corliss caught it. I can see where Troy's coming from. But yes, in the frustration of the game,
they felt real again. Like, just hearing Joe Buck and Troy Aikman call it, like, it would get my blood to boil. You'd see mistakes or things like that, and you're like, that's a terrible call. These referees have been paid off. Am I experiencing a Mandela effect and the Packers lose this game where I thought for years they've won? Because how do they win right now?
Yeah. Well, they punt it back to the Bears and you're going, oh no.
Yep.
The defense that was there in the first half and could get those stops has not been there. And for the third straight time, the Bears just march down the field, punch it into the end zone, and the Packers are down 28-20. And you're just feeling, I remember kind of feeling deflated at that point because it's early fourth quarter. You still have Aaron Rodgers, but even though he had played decent, minus the 2 picks, you're going, man, I just don't know if they got it in them. I just don't know if down 8 points, can the Packers offense actually muster what they need in order to come back in this game?
Yeah, I mean, especially considering if you're down 8 and you don't get it in that one shot and get that 2-point conversion, you're going to have to stop Matt Forte, who's just been terrorizing you. I think that's his 3rd touchdown of the game at that point, or he had 3 touchdowns, well over 100 yards. I think I was frustrated at a point. I was just like, I can't watch this. I'm walking away for a minute. It's literally in my note right before Brandon Marshall got that touchdown. Yeah, I'm shaking. I'm like, we're down by 8. Part of me is thinking, we could be down by so much more.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm like, I don't even know how to feel about this. I know we could be winning this game right now, but I know we could also be losing this by a lot more. So like, I feel okay. And I'm going to be honest, the next series full of highs and lows. Can't even describe the excitement and then frustration I felt during that like setup and how it was all going down. You want to lead into this? Because
so Eddie Lacy just starts, it's just a return for 18 yards, no big deal, no big return. Eddie Lacy 2 yards. Jordy Nelson, big catch and run where he's just slipping past defenders, he's breaking tackles, and now you feel like, okay, maybe we've got some momentum for the Packers. Just a 1-yard run by Eddie Lacy.
Rodgers throws a block because Lacy gets stuffed, cuts it back on like a schoolyard make it up play, and Rodgers throws a block.
You're going, what are you doing?
Right? I know.
No, you've got a bad shoulder. Get out of there, Aaron.
I was stoked that he was like so in the moment in the game that he knew that the best thing for him to do is block, but the best thing for you to do is to not be hurt.
Yes.
Availability is the best ability, Aaron.
Well, the one play before that, that set that play up was a pass to Andrew Corliss that
super low.
It's super low. Like the safety for Chris Conte, the safety for the Bears undercuts and looks like he's going to make an interception.
Right.
And Troy goes, I don't know how he didn't catch that. That had to have gone through his body.
Yeah,
because
I thought that was hilarious.
and he was right. They didn't have time because the Packers got to the line and then scored the touchdown that you mentioned to Eddie Lacy. But they replayed it a bunch before the kickoff, and Conti, as he's diving to try to make the play, it somehow like slides through his hands and arms perfectly, like grazes off of his shoulder and just ends up right in the hands of Andrew Corliss for a perfect completion. It was one of the mind-boggling completions that you've ever seen that never gets talked about. Somehow got it into a hole that wasn't there, and the Packers benefited from a great catch by Andrew Corliss.
Yeah. I mean, I would almost call that Brett Favre stuff.
100%.
Brett Favre loved rifling into spots and trying to go through defenders. So when Aaron Rodgers did, I was like, I know where he got that.
So the problem is you're down 1 point.
Oh,
but you've got to send the defense back out there, Matt. Defense that has not gotten a stop the entire game.
Didn't have to be down 1 point.
Yes, that's true.
Crazy reason, which I will never, ever understand. Mike McCarthy chose not to go for 2 and kick the field goal to just be down by 1. You're a field goal off either way. Why are we not going for 2?
And the tie. I don't know. I don't know. And again,
I'm sitting there fuming, yelling at TV. Like, what are we doing? We're down by a score. He could literally kick this off to oblivion and it doesn't matter. So why don't we just go for 2?
Well, so it was then mentioned later in the game when the Packers did go for 2 that the Packers had not converted a 2-point conversion all year. So I don't know if that went into McCarthy's thinking like, "Hey, we're not very good at these. Let's just take the point and move on." I'm not quite sure.
Kick a field goal to be down by 2 and go for it to be, like, and potentially you're in a tie. But there is no difference. Like, it literally was the most meaningless kick. So even if you don't ever score your 2-point conversions, you have to try that, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
100%. Yeah. So 100%. I'm like, I felt like I was taking crazy pills, but I'm like, oh, this is the reason we got rid of Mike McCarthy at the end. Like, I saw other parts of Mike McCarthy. I'm like, wow. And then I was like, oh yeah, that checks that box.
This is starting to make more sense.
Yeah.
The Bears would end up having a fairly long drive. They took over with 11:30 left in the ball game, up by a point. Start with a false start. Doesn't matter. Still pick up a first down after they get to a 3rd and 2. And I mean, guess who ended up running the football for 11 yards? It was Matt Forte, who just continued to do it play after play after play in this game. They then to let Jay Cutler throw a couple of balls, has some completions. And they're starting to get out towards they get past midfield. They're in Packers territory. You're going, oh man, they're just not going to get the stop. None of this is going to matter. And they somehow muster together a stop after Matt Forte got a 3-yard gain. Forte was then stuffed for a 5-yard loss. And Jay Cutler decided to do Jay Cutler things. And on 3rd and 17, just tried to throw it as far as he could down the field, almost completed it to Alshon Jeffrey. Thankfully incomplete, forcing a punt.
Then I'm stoked here until we're still chunking away. Time's okay. I think there's like 6 minutes.
Like 6.5 minutes, yeah. Like 6 minutes left. Plenty of time left.
So, like, I'm like, okay, we're not forced to just throw the ball. We can still utilize Eddie Lacy.
Yep.
And they get a absolutely brutal spot after
Terrible
3rd and 1.
Terrible
I was
spot.
like, we got that. And now I'm thinking, does McCarthy challenge? He already lost the one on Corliss.
Yep.
I don't want to waste a timeout if he loses this one. And
by the way, the Packers only had 1 timeout left at this point as well.
Right. And the whole time you hear Joe Buck and Troy Aikman saying how, like, talking about the challenge, and this is the tough part of being the coach, and whether you trust your team to get that half yard or if you call the challenge and try and win it, but if you lose, you're out of timeouts. And I like that Mike McCarthy had the guts to just be like, you know what? We still have a fullback. This is 2013. There's still a real football player. Let's give it to John Kuhn, the Packers legend.
4th and 1 from your own 22.
They were
with
back
5 minutes left in the game, and the Packers go for it, and they get it. Like, John, I don't even know why they measured it. That was a bad spot too. Like, he got it by like a full yard. Gave him a bad spot. He still had plenty for the first down.
But it was John Kuhn, never a doubt. First down.
But the problem was that wasn't the only fourth down the Packers faced on that drive. Despite taking over at their own 13 with like 6.5 minutes left, like they weren't getting big chunk yardage. It was just like little play, and they were facing another fourth down. It was 4th and 1 from their own 44 coming out of the 2-minute warning.
Yeah.
So you hit the 2-minute warning and you decide to go Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson.
Yeah.
Which was eventually reviewed. And I remember as the ball was in the air that you could tell it was a low throw. And I thought Rodgers skipped it in there. Like I remember watching that game live and thinking, that's it. And somehow Jordy comes back just enough to be able to cradle it and pick up the yardage necessary for the first down. And that sinking feeling in my stomach came back watching this back as Rodgers threw one low. And Jordy just, you want to talk about Rodgers doing Rodgers things? Jordy did Jordy things. And just a little thing to be able to come back to the ball enough to cradle it. But it was a really good catch on 4th and 1.
Yeah. And then not only that, Rodgers and Jordy start feeling it. And they do a Jordy and Rodgers thing where they get a chunk over the middle on like a slant route, I believe, to Jordy. Again, it's like those guys had that connection. Like we later saw it like Rodgers Devontae, but then it was like Rodgers Jordy. Those guys were reading each other's minds. That cutback play for the 4th and 1, it didn't even look like Jordy turned to see the ball was low. It's almost like the plan was for it to be low. Jordy did what he needed to do, and Rodgers put it there. It just looks like a bad play and a big miss. There were times I was like, that's called. Jordy went down like that because there's no way the defender can react in time to defend it.
No.
Or if he makes a proper turn, like those, I truly feel like some of those plays were completely designed where Jordy's going down his back shoulder. It looks like he's stretching out. He doesn't even turn and locate the ball. He just turns and stretches and like, bam, ball.
Yeah.
Just it was fun to watch. And like you were talking about that sinking feeling, like I felt like that. And then there was the, oh yeah, again, like nailed it. Like for a moment, I was a little scared, but I don't even know if I felt like the sinking as much as I was like, shocked, gasp, audible gasp.
But we face another 4th down right after that. Incomplete pass to Corliss. They run the ball with Eddie Lacy for a couple. And then one where Jordy was open and Rodgers threw it just a little bit behind him. So Jordy had the chance to maybe catch it, was behind him, glances off of his hands. Tim Jennings is right there, bounces off of his chest for almost a pick. And now you're facing 4th and 8 with under a minute to go at the 48-yard line. And it's one of the most replayed plays, I would say, for Aaron Rodgers' career for a number of different things. I mean, John Kuhn has certainly gotten his flowers for being able to just get enough of Julius Peppers to allow Rodgers to escape the pocket and get the time to find Randall Cobb. But to this day, I still cannot believe that the Chicago Bears just let Randall Cobb run free down the field. Like Randall Cobb, even at this point, like Randall Cobb was drafted in 2011. In 2013, he is already one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite receivers.
Right.
He's just coming off of an injury. He missed a bunch of games during this time where Rodgers was out as well. And the Bears just decide, we're turning Randall Cobb loose to run wide open down the middle of the field.
It blows me away. Honestly, I did not watch this game live, so it was nice to rewatch it. That play reminded me, I was in the car driving home from a curling tournament. I remember hearing Wayne Larrivee calling it, and then Rock going, he's got Randall Cobb. Like he couldn't hold his fandom back as like the play call, because Larrivee, professional as get out, going, Rodgers drop back, avoided Peppers, slides to the side, and you hear Rock over the background. He's got Randall Cobb. Yes. The feeling was, it all came back to me because Joe Buck and Troy Aikman weren't nearly as excited. And I remember like, this was a much more exciting moment. Like they were here for it. They made a great call, but I will forever be etched in my brain. Rock not be able to like hold his fandom back and just lose it for a moment.
So as you're driving back from a curling tournament, listening
Mhm.
to this game with the two legends that are Wayne Larrivee and Larry McCarron, like, are you honking your horn in celebration? Like, what are you doing after, like, Randall Cobb is now in the end zone? You've heard, again, that's one of the legendary calls for those two over the years. Like, how are you reacting in your car after hearing down that eventually the Packers beat the Bears to win the division?
Well, it's funny you say that about the honking horn. We heard a couple cars around us honk. So like we weren't the only ones listening to the game. I was with a couple other guys from Madison. So like high fives were tossed around. We had to be careful not to distract the driver too much, but it was fun. It was actually a lot of games, a lot of highs and lows I've experienced in the car. The end of Brett Favre's career, I was driving home from a curling tournament. So I listened to that Packers Giants game, which was tough. Yeah, so a lot of radio time listening in the car, and a lot of time like Packers would win a game and I'd be by myself and I'm like shaking the steering wheel and like sitting there alone, just like, yeah. And I've been on the same side where I've been shaking it in defeat and feeling angry. So definitely a different perspective, but honestly, a lot of fun. Those guys do a heck of a job calling a game. It feels like you really are there.
So, and this game would eventually end with a Jay Cutler. The Bears would get the ball out near midfield. Cutler would take a couple of heaves to the end zone. Sam Shields would intercept it to end the game to send the Packers to the postseason, win the NFC North. Now that you got to rewatch it, since you didn't get to experience it live, what was your biggest takeaway watching back a game from 2013?
Roller coaster, man. Like, your recap, I totally I forgot for a little bit until they had said like Rodgers just came back, and then I remembered it was the year he got injured, but it was so forgettable with the Seneca Wallace and Scott Tolzien. And then you remember Matt Flynn. I was like, Matt Flynn was always the guy. I forgot he went away to Seattle for a little bit, and then Russell Wilson took his job or won the job out there. So like, it kind of just like all these things were just like rushing back to me about like that time, like the ticker across the bottom. Joe Flacco goes 30 for 50, 200 yards and 4 picks. I was like, this is amazing. Like some of the stats and players that I was looking at, you had Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis had 130 yards receiving. I was like, I haven't heard that name maybe since 2013. I was playing fantasy football with my friends. Like LeGarrette Blount, like that guy, he was a journeyman in the league, but like who knows what team he was playing for at that time. But it was just like fun. It did take me back, and you'd see some of these Packers and you're like, man, look how many of these guys were on the Super Bowl team. And you look at this team now without Crosby and Rodgers, there's nobody left.
There's nobody left.
Super Bowl team is gone.
There's nobody left. Matt, thank you so much for doing this. I'm glad you took it as seriously as you did. I don't think anybody took this as seriously as you did. Like inviting friends over, making food, and kicking back on a random Sunday to watch a game from 2013.
Well, no better way to gear up for Packer season. And with all the curling I do, I don't get a ton of Packer games. So it's a great opportunity to get like a Cheaters Sunday Packer game in with some buddies. So relished in the opportunity, forgot I didn't get to watch it basically until the very end of the game when I heard the call and it wasn't Wayne Larrivee. So I was like, okay, that's right. I didn't see this live. I've definitely seen that replay, but I haven't seen the whole game live. So definitely turned out to be an awesome time and had some great food and a great time. So I appreciate you reaching out.
Matt Hamilton joining us this week. Again, catch him on Rutledge and Hamilton on ESPN Madison weekdays from 2 to 4. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Repackables. It's all part of Packed Summer right here on ESPN Wisconsin. Sitting here talking with Truman McGee of Funky Fresh Spring Rolls. All right, so how did Funky Fresh get started?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, almost to the day, I was a laid-off construction worker, had to move back into my parents' house and restart my life. I was almost 30, going bald, overweight, all the things that men are afraid of. And I said, I need to do something with my life. So I started literally making healthier meals out of my parents' kitchen from there, like my father was a Vietnam vet, like man's man. He loved these sweet potato and black bean spring rolls. And I thought, like, my dad loved it, anybody loved it. So we started getting to farmers markets, festivals. We opened our first location in Sherman, Phoenix in 2018. And kind of the rest is history. We kind of just grew from there.
Just kind of continuing to grow and grow and grow. So where do you have places now? What are we talking about? What's your next step for Funky Fresh?
So from the Sherman, Phoenix, in COVID happened, we had to figure out how to readjust and pivot, and we started to sell our spring rolls frozen directly to customers. And then we got into some couple local grocery stores, and then in 2022 we partnered with Palermo's, and they've been helping us expand our product. And now we are found in over 150 grocery stores in Wisconsin and Illinois.
How many different flavors do you have?
We got 4 flavors. We got our buffalo chicken and kale. I say kale, yeah. Chicken, broccoli, and mushroom, chicken club. And we got a sweet potato black bean, which is our #1 seller.
So is the sweet potato and black bean, is that your favorite because of the tie with your family?
It has to be. It's the OG roll. You know, my son says I'm shaped like a sweet potato. So you know what? That's fine. And that's going to be my OG flavor. That, for me, it has the most sentimental value because it's the firstborn of the company.
So what are your next steps? What are you looking to do with Funky Fresh now?
So now what we've done is 150 store tests. We've got a lot of feedback from our customers and being able to improve our product. And now we're looking at expansion. So our big goal for 2024 is to be able to expand nationwide, get our product out, get the best version of our product out, and get it out across the country.
All right, hit us with those 4 flavors once again.
All right, we got our buffalo chicken and
buffalo chicken and kale,
chicken club, chicken broccoli and mushroom, and the sweet potato black bean.
Sweet potato black bean. You can find them all around the Milwaukee area, different grocery stores all over the place.
Woodman, Syndics, Outposts, festivals. You go to funkyfreshspringrolls.com to check out a full list of where all our stores are at.
All right. Well, Truman, thank you so much for the time, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Again, and thank you to Funky Fresh for being part of RePackables right here on ESPN.